Traveling to consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I am your host, Clayton, and today's guest is a third-timer. No ordinary third-timer, but the first third-timer that we've had on the podcast. You can find her on episodes 002 and 017. She's into all things that create a spiritual lifestyle, and I'm not going to give her much more of an introduction because you should already know her name by now. With that being said, conscious monkeys, welcome to the show, Tiara, Alicea. Tiara, thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me back. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
I mean, likewise, because I feel like after both of those episodes, I remember just having like different little downloads of, oh shoot, like I could do this different, or I could try creating in this way. And so honestly, selfishly, I bring you on just to see if I can get more creative juices flowing.
I love that. I do feel the same way as well. I feel really like honored and privileged to be part of like such an early part of your journey, and like how much you've grown over the past, massively over the past month, but just the entire journey itself, and being able to grow with you as well is pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I mean, it's interesting too, because you were on episode 2. So you had been the second interview, and you were probably the only one that I never knew before actually starting this. Like the first 9 episodes were people that I had actually met in real life or, knew through friends. And so, yeah, I was, yeah. So that's an interesting thing as well.
Yeah. And it kind of feels that we've known each other before. I don't know if you feel that way. Like when I first talked to you, it was super comfortable. Like, I mean, you're obviously great to talk to anyway, and you're very personable, but I obviously didn't know you as well, but our conversation just flowed as if we knew each other for a really long time.
Before we start the show, I must warn you that there are ads throughout this podcast episode. If you'd like to get the show ad-free, you're able to get access by downloading the official Traveling to Consciousness app. It's available in the Google Play Store and iOS Store. I will note that there is a small monthly fee associated to get these episodes ad-free. And this is an important part. Make sure that any purchases you make on the website, travelingtoconsciousness.com, because products are going to be 15 to 30% more expensive through the app, because, the big boys got to get their own check. Even though you're purchasing this stuff through the website, you will still be able to enjoy all this content on the app. Now, if you prefer the free route, you can get a free login on the app, and that will grant you access to challenges, notifications when new episodes arrive, discounts, exclusive content, and so much more. All of this just by searching Traveling to Consciousness in your phone's app store, or click the link below. Now, conscious monkeys, let's get the show started. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that for 2 reasons. I mean, number one, like personally, like I don't know if there's a level of me getting to a point of being comfortable with myself where I'm able to develop these conversations. But even what you're saying, like you were episode 2, like I didn't have as much skill set as I do now. And so to your point, like there definitely has to be some level of us having a past life together or something that is, I have no idea, but there definitely has to be this little bit of component of A, me becoming more in tune with who I am, and then B, this level of, a soul recognizing a soul that they've seen before.
Yeah. And sort of like coming back together for whatever purpose we're supposed to serve each other in this lifetime too.
Right. And it must be something with content creation and spirituality and getting this
like
out to more
leading
people.
The collective. Actually, it's funny that you say that. I probably should bring this up. We're getting into it already, but I had a dream last night. And I've been studying Carl Jung's dream interpretation and analysis. I'm really heavy into his theories and philosophies when it comes to the psyche. And I had a dream last night where I was driving like a really long trip, and he he talks about the dream symbol of driving literally meaning drive and motivation. And I think that being connected with the rest of the context of this dream. So I was driving this really long distance to get to a farm, and I saw a bunch of like corn and crops like leading up to my destination. And he also talks about that being like sort of like the fruits of your labor, success, fertility as well. And I got to the farm and I was supposed to meet someone there, and it was a farmer. And a farmer, in terms of archetype, because he talks a lot about archetypes, is someone who grows food for the consumption of other human beings or animals. And I kind of, it's very metaphorical. Dreams are very metaphorical. And I took that as a metaphor that I've had all this drive and motivation, just like you, for so long that the fruits of our labor are now like coming, like they're being shown to us. And actually, I forgot this part. So on my way to the farm, I sent a text message to the person saying, I'm almost there. And I just think that is very telling in terms of like, we're producing something for the consumption of other human beings in a sense, like whether that be content, value, we're giving things to people to help improve the quality of their consciousness, improve their quality of life. And we're now sort of starting to see that become fruitful. And I just thought it was a really it obviously was very metaphorical, but I thought the dream itself was just very telling. And I thought it was very ironic that I had it literally last night and I woke up this morning doing the dream analysis. And I'm like, I feel like I'm seeing that for both of us now.
That's so cool.
It was very cool.
Well, I'm not familiar. I mean, my account's blowing up and stuff, but I'm not familiar with what's been like the developments in your life. So what's going on there?
So I have had a massive shift in terms of like being able to free up more time. Because I know you've been doing it full time for the most part, but for me, I was still working part time somewhere, but like borderline full time job somewhere else. And it was just taking up a lot of my time, a lot of my energy, and I wasn't able to like dedicate towards, creating content and stuff like that the way I've wanted to. But now my schedule has shifted so much like in my favor to be able to do that full time now, or at least full time for the most part. And this has only been super recent. Like it was this week and last week I've had that schedule change, and I just feel like I've gotten so much more done. I've been able to like create more of a system for myself that I didn't have before. I've also gotten past like a lot of limiting beliefs that were sort of holding me back from just putting stuff out and creating, because I can't tell you how much I've created something and then not put it out. I think we've probably talked about that like way in the past, but
it's always good to be reminded.
Yeah, it was a good reminder, a good way to like integrate it and just kind of start taking action towards, what I want to see happen in my life. But I've definitely gotten some overflow from you because I've been on your podcast so much. So I've noticed my followers going up on Instagram. My followers are still going up on YouTube as well. Like I have over 40,000 there. And overall, I just have like a lot more inspiration to create and a lot more energy now. So many ideas, but it was a matter of like taking those ideas and sort of mapping out when I want to do things, how I want to do things, because I had all of these ideas just kind of floating around in my head. But for them to be able to be brought down into physicality, I had to give them structure, which as someone who's super feminine now, was kind of hard for me to do for a while because I was so in my feminine energy and just, I was thinking of all these ideas I wanted to create, but I was like resting a little too much and it was integrating for a little too long. So my bounce back game has to, be improved, but I'm getting the hang of it now. I feel like I'm growing.
Find that balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's what's important, right? And even by what you're saying, it sounds like you're starting to find that flow of, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing. And something you mentioned in there that I think would be really helpful to people, you mentioned getting over limiting beliefs. And so, I believe the first thing with limiting beliefs is that you need to acknowledge they're there. You need to be able to see what it is. And then not only do you need to see it, but you need to then take action past it. So in your situation, your story, how did you identify what limiting beliefs were holding you back from this flow. And then after that, how did you take action to get past them?
So I am now kind of discovering that a lot of our limiting beliefs are sort of like intertwined and connected, and they sort of bleed into like almost every area of our life. Even if we think it affects only one area of our life, it's affecting so many others. So I had a limiting belief that I wasn't enough, like I wasn't worthy of, so many different things, but in general, very vague. I felt I wasn't enough, and that played a part into my people pleasing. I felt I needed to be absolutely 100% perfect and prove to other people that I was that, or else I might as well not even do it. You know what I mean? Super um unfulfilling, like not self-sabotaging mindset. But with that, hold on, let me pause 1 second, because I feel like I start to bring these up and then it's like coming back. It's like trigger warning, you know what I mean, for myself and probably other people too. So let me just take a second. Okay, so with that, I discovered that I only did that in terms of people pleasing, excuse me. I people pleased in order to control other people's perception of me. And that was rooted in the belief of me not being enough, not having enough value. And, if I'm not able to be the most perfect image in somebody else's eyes, I might as well not even do it. Um, which when it comes to content creation is really hard, because you have, let's say on my YouTube channel, I have over 40,000 eyes on me. I have 40,000 perceptions that I'm trying to fit the mold of, which can be really exhausting. It's impossible to please that many people to their 100% satisfaction. So that really held me back in a lot of ways. But what was interesting to me is I had a few experiences in the part-time job that I was working this past year and a little bit of last year too. Although I didn't necessarily want to be there, because I wanted to fulfill my dreams. I've learned so much in this part-time job that I needed to learn on this journey. And with this job, it's allowed me to sort of be, I don't want to say forced, because it's not forced, but I was put into these different roles. I had to wear many hats with this job. And it inspired me and motivated me to tap into all of these different skill sets that I have that I didn't even know that I had. You know what I mean? And one of those skill sets is that I can really do anything I put my mind to. And as long as I'm doing my absolute best with that thing, it doesn't matter if it's meeting someone's expectations to 100% capacity. As long as I know in myself that I did my very best and I'm giving myself props because I'm doing something that maybe I don't even have formal training in, I did pretty great. Like, I did amazing, probably up to the standard of somebody who does it professionally, with a lot of things I've noticed. And I needed to give myself more credit for that. And with that entire like story, I started to shift and mold that limiting belief into, no, like I'm way more than enough. I have a lot of value I can give to people. So there's a lot of like different stories and life experiences wrapped up into that like big life lesson, but overall, still integrating it now. Obviously, it's still like a trigger, but and I'm not perfect with it. Trust me. I've still had experiences lately where I'm trying to set boundaries with people, and people that like want to push them a little further, I've failed straight up. But I'm learning every single day with it, and I'm just learning to bring that imperfection to my content as well, because people can relate to that. And nobody wants to watch somebody perfect. Like
Doesn't exist.
it doesn't exist. It's
It's
not
unrelatable.
relatable. Yeah. I've been put in a lot of these situations lately where I've noticed like where I've come from culturally in my community growing up. Like, everybody's so quote unquote imperfect, but our imperfections play a part into this like beautiful story that we're all living every single day. And I think I'm just like waiting for the day where I'm able to look back and see the beauty of it all, even though I do see it now. I know that's part of also manifesting it. But I'm just like waiting for that huge moment where I know like I look back at everything that I've gone through, every adversity, and I'm like, ah, this feels great. I appreciate every single challenge I've ever been through, but I already feel it now. It's just, I'm waiting for that moment so I can break down and cry and be like, thank you.
You can cry right now if you want.
Hey, I mean, shoot, I was like, that was coming up for a second. I didn't know it was still being integrated that much, but
no, I deeply appreciate, you going to that place and being vulnerable, because Conscious Monkeys, I need to tell you about these psychedelic fabric mushrooms that are absolutely incredible that I've just come across. They're all one of a kind and are honestly a perfect trip buddy. They're an incredible addition to anyone's like house or room who takes psychedelics and you have a certain spot that you like to go and relax. You're going to have to check out these Aquarius mushrooms. These high-end mushrooms are made with 100% recycled material and are all one of a kind. Honestly, these mushrooms are something I'm not going to be able to describe in words alone. You're going to need to check out the link below and search to see if you can find one that resonates with your soul. Remember, they're all one of a kind and made from 100% recycled material. Aquarius mushrooms. Premium mushrooms for the new age of enlightenment. Get yours today. Conscious Monkeys, I need to bring your attention to this company that I've been using over the past few months, and probably longer now if you're hearing this, that has absolutely changed the way that I'm actually interfacing with the world. It's a company by the name of Conscious Technologies. And what they do is actually create these harmonizing units. And what it does is it actually takes the rotation of EMF frequencies that are in your area and harmonizes them. They make them in line with the true natural frequency of the universe around you. And they're incredible products. I actually went and I've tested out their quantum flow unit. I've tested out their meditation bed, their core harmonizer. And quite frankly, they were so incredible that I actually bought the cell phone EMF harmonizer for my cell phone. I was also lucky enough that Ross threw in a necklace as well. So I've been wearing that thing, and quite frankly, I'm even wearing it to bed, and my dreams have become so vivid and just intense that it's pretty insane. I honestly feel so grateful to have it. Their mission is to bring forth technologies that support the harmony of mankind and the world at large. Go check out their stuff. I mean, looking's for free. And if I'm being honest, if you click the link below and make a purchase, I do get some kickback, but quite frankly, I wouldn't be promoting it if it didn't work. So with that being said, go check them out. Conscious Technologies LLC, link below. Now let's get back to the interview. I've even noticed with my own stuff in this setting, sharing it on a podcast or just talking it out loud. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it even with so many other guests that I've had on. It's just by sharing that, like that gets it out. That gets it out into the atmosphere. That will help you on that journey. And I believe we've talked about this where I had sexual trauma? There was like a past life with, the Akashic Records. That was a story that I actually, I came across it like 10 months ago at this point, almost a year. And it was just last week where I was with a group of people who I had never met before. Mind you, this was like the first time meeting them. I only knew one kid who I met 24 hours prior, and I'm about to leave the event. And we started talking about spirituality and consciousness, and it gets to my Akashic Records story, like came up. And I'm kind of getting choked up thinking about it now. And here I am standing in front of 10 people, maybe 10 to 15 people, about to tell my entire Akashic Record story of like that brutality with like in the Middle Ages of the 1700s. Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, it was crazy too. The wildest thing too is I like paused right before it. And I'm like, do you guys want the PG-13 version or like the rated R version?
Rated R.
And they're like, I was like, if we're gonna,
if we're gonna go there, we're gonna listen to it.
Yeah, exactly. And right when they said that, the wind like started picking up, and like there was a bonfire, and it started crackling like loud. And I'm just like, whoa. I sit back, I'm like, oh shit, okay, I get it. Everyone else is like, yeah, I think the universe is telling you got to say this.
Yeah, it was there. It was apparent.
But the point that I bring this up is just that it's going to be an integration journey, right? Like that choking up, like you being able to push through that is so crucial to integrating traumas, integrating these past experiences, because it gives you like that new perspective to push through. And hell, maybe there's even something I can offer, or you're even helping somebody else by bringing this up on the podcast. And there's so many people that I have had on where I see that little pause that they have. And, it's just me being comfortable and being able to sit back to get them to open up to that and actually share it, because I truly believe that's how we evolve and heal as a collective human species.
I agree. I definitely agree. Like, with that, I feel comes a form of acceptance, being able to talk about it. And I think there's a lot of growth in being able to talk about it with it, even if it still triggers you a little bit. It's still something that you're working through. As long as it's not triggering you as deeply as it was before, there's still growth there.
Apologies on that, guys. Quick glitch. I accidentally hit my hand on something, so you see something quick there. Well, that was that. But Tiara, what were you saying? We'll find a way to cut that nicely.
Oh yeah, it's totally fine. It's funny because when you cut out there, I have these affirmations on my lock screen with the iOS 16 update, and it says change is easy for me, and it's kind of exactly what I was talking about in terms of with your triggers sort of being less triggering or not as triggering as they were before. There's growth there. It's evident that in your transformation and evolution through healing whatever past experience, formed that negative limiting belief, that self-sabotaging mindset. There's just healing that's been done already. Like there's something to be proud of there. Even like I said, it's a journey. It's not something that I'm even 100% healed through in terms of like my past wounds with the people pleasing and being a perfectionist and all of that. But every single day, I'm just proud of myself for getting one step better or like one more step healed, if that makes sense. So.
No, it does. And I mean, even more so, to extrapolate on kind of the entire story you're talking about, you have this vision of becoming like a content creator. And I can even tell from my experience, the things you're saying, about wearing multiple hats, because I do everything myself, from recording the podcast, scheduling guests, creating clips, to finding people to bring on the show, to responding to all the DMs. You have to find that balance in order to wear the multiple hats. And then even more so, if you're people pleasing, and here's an interesting thing with boundaries, is it seems like they can still shift over time. So
absolutely,
even myself, as I'm kind of going through this process, like I need to figure out who I can bring on the show and figure out what boundaries I'm willing to set with certain people in certain situations, because it goes all the way from responding to DMs to certain people coming on the podcast, and what are the barriers that you're going to set up around them. And so, as a frame switch or as a frame shift, let's call it, even looking at it as like, experiencing a new situation, a situation you've never been in before, experiencing it, and then after the fact saying, oh, I wish I would have handled that better. As opposed to saying that, it's more, oh, now I know next time I'm going to handle it differently in this situation.
Exactly. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you, like constantly ingraining that mentality. Because I did have a situation recently, like I said, where I sort of folded on my boundary with someone. And that's, I set my boundary with them on the same thing, probably like 3 or 4 times already. And I was already like pretty sort of proud of myself for doing that. But this is someone who it's very close to me and I love them dearly. But, we all kind of have these sort of manipulative tactics or behaviors that maybe we're not aware of still. And, that sort of is something that occurred, and it caused me to, fold on my boundary in the way that I felt that I needed to defend something about myself, and prove to them, again, I'm controlling their perception of me, prove something to them that they were sort of mistaking about me or misunderstanding about me. And, that was like really, really challenging, because in that you sometimes in person, you have seconds to make that decision of how you're going to uphold your boundary. And for me, I'm able to do it like if I'm texting someone, because I'm able to work through what I'm trying to say, what my thought process is, how I want to set this boundary with somebody, how I'm going to say it gracefully and deliver it with kindness and love. But in person, you're like, there's so many things going through your mind at one time. So I folded straight up, and I was kind of mad at myself for a few days after that, because then it caused me to like follow through with the fold on my boundary. I then had to do something, right? But I had a really long conversation with my partner actually, and he was like, listen, this challenge that you're going through right now is happening for you. It's prepping you for bigger battles that you'll be able to handle and face. It's essentially prepping you to handle more energy. And when he said that, I was like, my shoulders just dropped. Like, it entirely changed the narrative of the situation for me. And I was able to look at it in the way that, like, okay, this is meant to serve me in some way. And holding more energy could be so beneficial in so many different ways. And immediately my thought went to like more business mindset or like finances. So we know like money is energy, right? And when you're a content creator, sometimes that underlying thought is like, where's my next big check coming from, because we have multiple streams of income, but they're all kind of inconsistent. You have some money from YouTube here, maybe some money from TikTok here, some money from Instagram here. But it fluctuates. There's seasons, there's ebbs and flows with that. But you're constantly like kind of wanting a little bit more each time. And because money is energy, you're going to have to be able to hold and be a container for more energy if you want to make more income. That's kind of the way I thought about it. And ever since then, I've been working on that in terms of my self-concept and like just seeing myself as I'm someone who's able to hold a lot of energy gracefully. And just shifting that sort of belief in myself and constantly reaffirming that to myself, I've seen a lot of changes in my reality. To the point where I've even seen myself, quote unquote, working less now. I'm not necessarily working less, but I'm doing things that I enjoy more and I'm making more money. And it's an absolutely like monumental, pivotal point to be at.
It's such a mind-blowing experience. Conscious monkeys, are you looking for a CBD cream that actually works? I've tried many different CBD products and I've really never truly felt like any of them have worked for me. Like maybe there'd be like a little bit of tingling and then it would fade pretty quickly. Then came along Revive CBD. From the first time I tried it on, I could tell that there was something different about this product. I noticed that any joint pain I had was gone within minutes of applying it, and it lasted for significant duration. I don't have an exact time for you guys, but do your own test. So if you're still looking for the right CBD cream, then this might be the right one for you, because if you resonate with my vibe, then maybe you'll resonate with this vibe. I actually kind of just made that up on the spot, so hopefully you liked it. Check out the link below. And as a side note, like always, the link below is an affiliate link. But again, I would not be promoting them if it didn't work for me. So hopefully it'll work for you. Again, check it out below, myrevibe.com. Get yours today. Conscious Monkeys, if you're looking to start your own podcast, I have the 2 tools that you need to use to get that show on the road. And the names are Buzzsprout and Riverside. I'm combining these into one ad because, I've honestly had nothing but the best for them. But if you're going to be using one of them, you might be using the other one. So what Buzzsprout is essentially the platform that I use to put my podcast out there. It's the reason you can hear this. That's the reason that I appear on all these different directories. The thing you might also need is that if you're interviewing people, you're going to need Riverside as well. And quite frankly, I'm using it right now to even just record these podcasts because they will even dilate in. I don't think that's the right phrase for it. They will harmonize your voice so that it sounds equivalent. So if I start talking quiet at one point, they have a built-in editor that will actually make your voice sound crisp. I highly suggest Buzzsprout and Riverside. Go check out the links below in the description. And like always, these are affiliate links. So I do get a minor kickback if you do sign up with them. However, like always, they are incredible. The support has been on point and they always get back to me. So I highly recommend them. If you have any questions, they're there to help. So with that being said, go check it out in the link below and let's get back to the interview. Whenever you're able to get to that point and you're like, wait, I'm not doing that much. But then where's all this money coming from?
Right.
How did this just show up? Like, I didn't expect this to happen.
Right.
Yeah. The visual I was getting when you were talking there was kind of like of a bucket, and if you have a bucket and there's like holes in it, you're going to be leaking. Imagine the water's energy, right? If you got too many holes in it, you can keep filling up the bucket, but you're not going to be able to use any of it because it's just like leaking through those holes. And it's almost like whenever you kind of call out to the universe of like, I want more, I want this, help me heal that. It kind of is like, okay, like, let me show you how you apply this Band-Aid to this hole. And so, your process would have been applying this Band-Aid 3 or 4 times, but that Band-Aid kept falling off for whatever reason. And then, it's like, you just got to maybe patient, or maybe the hole like is transforming. And I mean, we're dealing with other people. So like they're on their own journey as well. And they're figuring out how to figure out life as well. So, it's not just a stagnant hole, but I found that to be a pretty interesting visualization that was coming to me when you were talking about setting boundaries and becoming a stronger container for being able to hold more energy.
Yeah, I love that metaphor, because even instead of using a Band-Aid, maybe I need to use something else in order to patch this hole. Like maybe at the time, whatever methodology I was using to sort of heal this past wound of mine, or to try to integrate these new belief systems, maybe that wasn't necessarily working. And maybe I just need to shift what I'm using, and that could be anything in terms of like the modality that you're using. Maybe before I was just kind of scripting or journaling. But maybe I need to do hypnosis. Maybe I need to do some more meditation. Maybe I need to do yoga, so you have to use different things to sort of patch up these wounds and holes. It's not any one way, or you might have to patch up one hole differently that you patched up this other one, because we're also unique in terms of our life experience.
No, that's honestly a beautiful thing that you bring up, because I've started noticing that in my life as well, that there's almost these different tools or modalities, as you called it, where you can apply them in different situations and see which one works as well. And, if I were to list it off, I'm probably up to, let's see here. I have lifting, yoga, jujitsu, sauna, meditation, Akashic records, dream journaling, and to not bore you guys without the list, but I probably have 2 or 3 more. So having 10 different modalities, journaling's another one, having 10 different modalities in order to figure out where something's coming from, like, gives you this entire arsenal to repair these holes that appear in your bucket. Or maybe your bucket keeps growing to another size and you need to add on to the top layer of the bucket. And so to your point, like, I think that's the most beautiful thing maybe that I've personally found through my podcast, is being able to find those different modalities that people have to offer. And I mean, even shout out to you for introducing me to Holly, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Incredible conversation. She has she has a really cool dream journal thing that like super helped me out, and you might use it as well with, you're shaking your head, with like interpreting the dreams. And that thing's cool as fuck.
Yes. She, I talked to her actually a long time ago on Clubhouse, is where I met her. And she, I don't want to say introduced me to, like dream journaling, because I was already like writing down my dreams, but more so interpreting dreams. And I loved the way that she did it. She did one for me way back when, through Zoom. I think she still offers that actually. And everything she said just resonated so much. And she's just like, yeah, like, I mean, it's literally your mind talking to you. Your subconscious is talking to you in the form of these visual images and these metaphors. That's it.
Conscious Monkeys. I've got something out there for all my coaches, anybody who has digital courses, anybody who's creating content, whether it's audio or video. You got to check out Superpass. Superpass is this super dope platform that I've been using now, and they're actually what has enabled my app to work. It's what's enabled me to start generating income and to help people more effectively. If you are a content creator, you create audio, video, whatever it may be, Superpass might be the choice for you because they'll provide you with your own app and they have a great online service to also help you out. So I'm not going to put in too much because everything they do is way too much to pack into this one ad. I will say go click the link below because that is where you'll be able to find all the information. This is an affiliate link and I wouldn't be promoting them if it didn't help me. Click the link below and go check out Superpass. With that being said, Conscious Monkeys, let's get back to the last segment of the interview. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. And that's a good point as well. It's like the way to interpret, the way to understand these thoughts that you're having. And if we tie this back into our earlier part of the conversation, it's like we have a million thoughts a day, figuring out which one of those are limiting us from getting to that higher place that we're trying to get to can be difficult. I mean, and this has been something I've kind of, I don't want to say struggled with, but have almost questioned throughout all of my life, where it's like, here's the way that I'm doing it. Somebody new comes in and says, hey, here's a different way or how I think you should be doing it. And then I sit there and think about it and I'm like, okay, which one of these is actually more accurate? There has to be truth to this. And I believe that the biggest time this came to me was whenever my TikTok originally blew up, because you have all these comments of people saying how wrong you are, how, crazy you are. And there's a part of you that's like, that still has that piece of wanting to integrate what other people say to see the truth in it. But I think the bigger issue becomes is when you're dealing with people that you have no idea who they are. They have no credibility because it's a random name on a screen. No offense to anybody, but that's just our relationship at a certain level. You have to learn how to almost, and this might help you as well, to kind of either not look at them or just realize that they don't know who you are. You don't know who they are. So, for all we know, it could just be a bot, and it becomes difficult to actually integrate that into your life or try to even discern that as legitimate advice because you have no idea who or what is saying those words or even how they're saying those words, which is huge as well.
That's very true. That's very true. Like, I've definitely noticed it with myself too. And it always happens when you have a few pieces of content that are kind of, going more into the masses. I did see one recently, and usually comments like that don't bother me. But I saw one, someone said, this is useless. Like, this information is useless. And at first I'm like, well, dang, you kind of take it to heart because you're like, I want to provide value to people, but like you said, you have to use discernment. You don't know the context of which this person is saying this. They also are only seeing one small snippet of, lengthier pieces of content. So you have to take all of that into account. And also just knowing that, like, that person's at a certain point in their journey, and maybe they might just have a lot of a lower vibrational emotion, and they are just finding ways to get it out. And you just happen to be, kind of in their mess a little bit, not in their mess, but it's sort of leaking out to you. And that has nothing to do with you. You can just brush it off and you can keep it moving. It doesn't have to be your mess just because it's their mess.
Right. And I'm interested what you think from like an energetics place with this, because there has to be some sort of like energy signature or connection that's made. And I'm thinking about this in relation, like my IG post is up to like 2.5 million views. So like a good majority of those people, especially the ones who are now following, there has to be some level of them thinking about me, like whether it's positive or negative, no matter what it is, there's some level in their mind that creates this representation of who Clayton is. So at some level, does there become this like energetic attachment to me that then, like, I guess I'm curious just what your opinion is of this, because I've kind of felt it lately where like, the emotions kind of fluctuate, but nothing's like changing with me. And I have this feeling that because there's more people thinking about me, or that there's a perception of Clayton in more people's heads, that at some level it's affecting who I am as a person.
I can see what you're saying. I think that maybe, so I'm thinking about it in terms of, I think Neville Goddard's philosophy of everybody's you pushed out. So if you're sort of subscribing to the way in which they perceive you, in a sense, I think maybe there's a small part of your subconscious that may be perceiving yourself as that as well. Especially if you're sort of attracting that into your energy field. That's just kind of how I think of it. That might be a little bit of a controversial topic, but even like the guy that commented on one of my posts saying this information is useless, I thought to myself, is there a small part of my subconscious that thinks what I'm delivering to people is useless and it's not of value? And I mean, to be honest, yeah, there was a small part of my subconscious that was saying that to myself. And, you know, that small doubt was there that I was providing any sort of value to someone. And, you know, that was just a big indicator to me that, okay, there's still some healing that needs to be done there. There's still some integration that needs to be done there.
That's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point, because whenever the TikTok thing went viral, I was talking about something that I really didn't know much about at all. And I could tell that there was some sort of triggering whenever other people would like stitch it and put their own opinion on it. There's some triggering within me that didn't want to see that. But to your point, it's probably because I intrinsically knew, okay, I didn't do a lot of research with researching this thing. There is some truth here, but let me see where the difference is. And I think to your point, like it's almost humbling in a sense, right? Because it takes you to this perspective of maybe I don't know everything, which of course I don't. And I think it also comes to an interesting perspective where I believe that everybody is right. Now, you know, how right you are can change variance based on your energetic signature. So I think it's helped me because I've gotten to a point, especially with my most recent one, where, you know, people are like, this is insane. This is crazy. Imagine being, what was the big one? Imagine being this dumb, stuff like that. And it's like, it's very fascinating. It's fascinating because I know that that's, and it comes back to your point, because I know that that's a piece of me. Like I know whenever I was less spiritually inclined, whenever I was more wrapped up in the physical world, I would have probably said the same thing had that come across my feed as well.
Right. There's a small part of you, like past you, in you still. And I think that's why, like, I'm sometimes like so intrigued with our psyches, because our psyche really doesn't have a concept of time. It's past, present, and future is always simultaneously happening. So even like right here in this now moment, if we're consciously saying new things to ourselves, like I'm very intelligent, I'm super wise, I'm full of wisdom, we have to still sort of go back in our past. And there's a lot of meditations that people do where they kind of go back into the past, and let's say they're reliving a traumatic event through visualization. They rewrite that memory in their psyche, so that way it writes a new story, and now your sort of neural pathways are rewired, and now you're not even that person that experienced the traumatic event anymore. You're now this new person in this here now moment that experienced something completely different, because we can shift a memory, or we can literally change a memory. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's to your point, maybe that's part of your past self in you still, and you kind of have to work through like those things that you used to say to yourself back then. Or maybe you know how we kind of used to, I don't want to say used to, because I mean we do it now, but we're more healed versions of ourselves. But when we would sort of criticize ourselves, like, oh my God, you know, you're so dumb, or oh, I look like shit today. You know what I mean? Everybody has done that at some point. And although it might have been just like a small moment in time that maybe faded away into nothingness, like it still happened. And your subconscious still is sort of reliving that moment, because it's past, present, and future is always happening, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I think about it. And that's why I think it's so important to like constantly be reaffirming new belief systems to yourself, constantly be doing like the deep shadow work, the transformative work to heal parts of your past, your trauma, even past lives. Cause like, I know you're into Akashic record reading, like going back into past lives and like reliving those moments, coming to acceptance, healing in terms of what happened, changing the narrative in terms of what happened and what that means for you now, I think is so powerful. It can literally make you a new person. You know, like I've definitely done it in terms of meditations, or even, I guess we can probably talk about this a little bit too. Like when I went to Salem, had no idea why I had to go there, other than having a reoccurring dream when I was a kid and talking to a psychic saying like, yeah, you need to go back there. Had no idea really why I was there, but there was probably some part of me, whether that had been in this life, past life, whatever, that had to go back there to change the narrative of how I felt in that city, you know, like whatever that may have been. And I mean, there's obviously probably lots of layers in terms of what that would have meant for me, but I just think that changing the narrative of a past story or a past belief is really what can sort of catapult you into like quantum shift you into a new dimension, which I do feel like you kind of did once you hit a certain point of virality and, you know, your followers are literally doubling every 24 hours, not even. You're sort of quantum shifting.
It's interesting you say that because for two reasons. One, I was like, holy shit, I think I quantum shifted here a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And this actually gets really interesting because this touches on the podcast right before you, who I was talking to yesterday or 2 days ago. So I always had this belief in my mind that TikTok was easy to go viral on. TikTok, hundreds of thousands of followers meant nothing. Anyone can do it. It's easy. And what do you know? It happened. Some time passed a little bit, and I was not seeing any of the same with Instagram whatsoever. Like I was maybe at like 1,500 followers. And I realized, like breaking that down, that my mindset around TikTok was that it was easy to grow. I was like, well, why don't I just shift that mindset of Instagram? So anytime it comes up in my mind, it's like, oh, it's easy to grow. It's easy to grow. Just keep rewriting that.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know? You do it enough times and
Mm-hmm.
one video blows up, right? And here's the interesting thing too. Here's what I find super fascinating about both of my situations, right? TikTok was, I mean, of course, more went viral after the fact with TikTok, and I think more are doing that with Instagram as well. But what's really fascinating to me is that one went off on TikTok, got like 2 million views, and I got like 150,000 followers from it. And then on Instagram, one video that's still going viral as we're speaking got 2.5 million views and has 60,000 followers. And I find it so fascinating, and both those numbers are still growing. I find it so fascinating, the views to follower trade-off that I've experienced in both situations, because I believe that there are a lot of people who can have a video go viral. Hell, I've seen a lot of TikTokers have videos over 2 million, 3 million views and a fraction of the followers that I have. So I find it very fascinating. And I don't know if you've seen something similar to this, but to me, I found it very fascinating, that trade-off. And it's interesting too, because what I was talking about with the podcast yesterday, and I'll just leave it at this, that the girl I was talking to said like the same exact thing back to me, where she was like, yeah, I felt like TikTok was easy to go viral on and get followers, but you know, I feel like Instagram's is like hard to get like followers and all this stuff. And when she said it, I kind of perked up. I was like, I had that same thought at one point.
Yeah. I think that's part of the collective unconscious of Instagram. Everybody thinks it's hard to grow on Instagram now. You know, everybody's complaining about the algorithm and, you know, all that stuff. And I mean, I've even done it too. Like when it comes to like story views or something, I'm like, how in the world did I get hundreds of story views this one day, but then the next day I get like maybe 98? Like, what's going on? And then just like you, I'm like, okay, I got to rewrite this story if I don't want to manifest this in physicality. And what I was reflecting on the other day was like how much us as human beings, like we're the one species, that can sort of override programming. Like that is absolutely wild to me. Like we can have this running program, right? Then once we become conscious of it or aware that this program is running, we're like, yeah, let's override that. I don't want that to happen anymore. Like the amount of power in that, I think, is so just, it's underrated. Seriously.
It's very underrated. That's interesting because I've always been looking for some sort of, let's say, gap or like leap in consciousness of like, why are humans like what does it mean to be conscious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, at some level you can say that animals are conscious, which, you know, is fair.
Yeah.
Even if you go down that ladder, where it gets weird is the conversation of if, you know, a computer is conscious or like a stationary object is conscious or has consciousness a part of it. And avoiding that conversation, I find it I always find it interesting that we can deem, like, because there's some animals that can carry out some tasks, like very medial, very basic tasks.
Right.
And it gets interesting to think like, where's the next step, right? Is like that ability to actually overwrite your past, the ability to change your past, which can then change your future, change your present, you know, all of those things. And so I don't know where I'm going with that, but I find that to be a very fascinating and interesting idea that we're really the only species on Earth that is able to rewrite our mind.
Yeah, I find it really interesting too. It's something I definitely reflect on. But emphasis on species on Earth. Maybe we're not, or maybe there's, you know, other species out there in the universe that are also able to do it as well. Maybe there's even other people that, or not people, but other species that help us out with doing it. Like we really don't know. And you know what's something funny I saw on TikTok the other day is I think the Air Force is changing like their logo and it has a UFO on it now. Did you see that?
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same UFO that the one guy drew. What was the guy? Bob, is it Bob or Bill? His last name starts with an L.
Oh, I think
he had like a documentary.
Yeah, I've heard. Oh my gosh. Now you're like making me remember it, but I don't remember. I've seen it too.
Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar. There it is.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar. Yeah, they basically put in the same exact UFO that he had on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thing, where here, we'll start with you. Where are you at on the whole UFO disclosure? Like, why do you think the government, because I think at this point we can all agree, at least the people that listen to this podcast can agree, that we're not alone in the universe. Mm-hmm. There are conscious beings, probably more conscious than we are, that exist in the universe. So, and I think at this point we all know that the government is very well aware of UFOs, whether it's the CIA or the FBI or the Pentagon, whoever, it doesn't matter.
Oh yeah.
Where do you stand on why the government has not yet said, yep, we're not alone?
That I think I truly don't know. Like I could have my assumptions and sort of you know, assume why, but have no idea if this could be true. I have seen that they've been like giving us small spoonfuls of information. And I also am a big fan of Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia TV. I don't know if anybody else watches it, but I think a lot of it has to do with us not fully understanding like their technology or like where they come from, how they got here. Like there's still so much that we don't know. And I think that sometimes the government doesn't want to admit that they don't know something to us, because then everybody like goes haywire and chaos like breaks loose. You know what I mean? Not literally, but I think we've kind of seen it with like the panini that happened. You know, there was so much confusion and sort of chaos around that topic, and it starts to like divide people. It starts to create like so much dissonance in society. So the government, I think, is just, it wants to be right about whatever idea that they want to put out there, or at least, I don't want to say right, but they want to be able to give us a solid answer, even if it isn't right. but something that allows the masses to sort of subscribe to this idea, because that's kind of what they do with everything. That might be kind of controversial to say, but I think that is partially why. I mean, there's CIA declassified documents out there too, like to read, that says, you know, other entities and beings like have been here, are here. We've found craft, we've seen craft, we've gone inside craft. Like there's all of these things. So yeah, I really don't have a direct answer to that. I guess I'm one of those people just kind of like sitting back and seeing what happens. But I know that there's also people out there that have had experiences with other entities and beings. I have myself as well. I can't say whether or not they were extraterrestrial or not, but yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless with that, because we live in such a vast universe. What do you think, though?
I think that a part of your answer I agree with, which is like that the element of them wanting to be right. Mm-hmm. And I would take it a step further and even say like they want to be right in a sense that they can control the narrative or the direction that the information would go, or at least know how people would react to it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like you're saying, if you have no idea how people react, that's how you lose control.
Yeah.
And I think we can all agree that government and all these organizations want to control us, at least maybe not physically, but at least mentally. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's an element of that. I think there's an element of them just, and I think this is a big piece, right? Is that they just don't know. I think that they might be too, you know, for whatever reason, I just don't think that they have the in-tuned information or the 100% wherewithal to have certain conversations, because if they come out and they're like, yeah, we're not alone, but we don't know why, like, we don't know why they're here. Like that would be that's the answer that I think they would say if they came out today. They'd be like, yeah, we know that we're not alone. There's aliens out there. They've been disabling our nukes, and we don't know why.
Yeah, straight up.
I think to me, I'm like, that's why they're not coming out and saying anything. Is because they don't actually know why they're here. They don't maybe consciously or even want to believe that they're here to help progress humanity. And even and here's what's really interesting. You can find that majority of UFO sightings are found around nuclear plants or nuclear facilities. So where it gets interesting is that the reason that they're majority there is because they actually go through and disable nukes. Yep. You can find a boatload of Navy officers who talk about how nukes just go offline. They see a UFO that just goes offline. They see a UFO, it shoots red lasers at the nukes, and then it goes offline. And so even from a strategic national defense point of view, they can't come out and say, hey, we have this whole nuclear arsenal, but UFOs keep rendering them useless. Because then from a war perspective, we just drop off a map.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Two things.
Even though
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even though they're likely doing it in other countries as well. It's not like they're signaling out the US.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say two things. I think completely agree with what you're saying. I also think that the government, in terms of war, with that subject, they want to be able to control, and they don't know how to, and they can't. So that's part of that. But also I do, or I've heard before that, you know, extraterrestrials disable these nuclear weapons because, God forbid, we ever decided to use them. They not only cause destruction to Earth, but I've heard throughout the entire galaxy, if not universe, because of the type of energetic molecule and matter that is involved with nuclear weaponry. So I think that they're doing us a favor with that. I don't even know why we have that. I don't even know why it's ever been invented, but they're definitely helping us out in ways that maybe we don't even understand yet. And I mean, the government is interfering with that, which, I mean, that just tends to happen, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there's so much we don't know yet at all.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I mean, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, who knows, right? But I guess what's the point? Is there even a point? I don't know. What was I thinking of, though? I was thinking something else. you have a topic you want to bring up? I know you were saying you wanted to ask questions at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually
when we were in the
more
green
so
room.
intrigued with just how you like were able to quantum jump so easily. Like, what do you think contributed to that? I know we were talking about modalities earlier. What do you feel you've done, or the modalities that you've used that have allowed you to quantum jump so easily, you know, just with your perspective?
The biggest one, I'm trying to think if there have been other things. I feel like a couple things. I think the big two, I'll say that there's two in the last couple weeks that I've really been focusing on. Number one is setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I've been setting a lot of boundaries, mostly around conversations that I don't want to have anymore, where, you know, if someone keeps bringing up the same thing and I'm like, here's the solution, and here's the solution, and they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at a point now where I'm like, I got to stop having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say number one is setting boundaries. But number two, that I don't believe anybody really talks about, I picked this up from a Tony Robbins seminar, which blew my mind that he was talking about this. But the core concept is if you're having a shitty day, majority of people don't need a reason to have a shitty day. Like, you go up and ask someone what's wrong, and they're just like, oh, bad day. And you're like, why? They're like, you know, woke up. It's like,
that's it.
They're like, really? You're like, so where it gets interesting is if you're able to have no reason at all to have a shitty day, then you can have no reason at all to be as happy and celebrating life as you possibly want. Mm. So where this comes to, and what he talked about in this seminar, was to actually physically jump up and down, like get up, stand up, jump up and down, get your feet off the ground, start celebrating, arms in the air, you know, beating your chest, fist bumping, and scream, like yelling, like, woo, like, let's go.
Yes.
And being excited, just being excited for the day, for being alive, being grateful for what it is, and visualizing, combined with visualizing. This is what I added. Mm-hmm. He didn't say this, but I added visualizing the desired reality that I wanted to live in. Mm. And I believe that cheering, it's like, and if you don't know what this sounds like for some reason, if you have no idea what that looks like, look up like anybody hitting a game-winning shot in a basketball game, or scoring a game-winning touchdown, hitting off a walk-off home run. That's probably the best example, is if you look up a walk-off home run, when they jump on home plate, you see the entire team jumping up and down. Do that for like 2-3 minutes, and it will change everything. And I truly believe, and the next layer is, I truly believe that this has been a huge help of quantum leaping. And I believe that the next step is noticing in your body when you start to feel tight, because once you start feeling tight, that's whenever that onset of depression, like shame, guilt, fear, lower vibration starts to happen. So once you start recognizing that tightness, and this is why meditation is so powerful, once you recognize that tightness, go and jump up, stand up, jump up, like fist bump, think about the reality you want to live in, start yelling, because in celebration of receiving all these things. And then even if I'm working on content, I'll sit back down in my chair and still like be like running around in my chair, like, because I want to keep that energy going in this new state of being in my chair. And so I think those are like the two biggest things that I've been doing that have completely changed my reality.
I love that. There's so much there that I feel like we can kind of branch off from, but I feel like the main point with that is you're building so much momentum around your wish being fulfilled. If your wish was fulfilled already, that it's literally putting you in that moment physically, emotionally, like you're putting your body in that moment as if, which I mean, I know Neville Goddard talks about in like all of these, you know, manifestation, law of attraction, law of assumption sort of leaders and teachers talk about. And I've noticed very similar things with that as well. Like, I just hearing you say that, I've been doing this weird thing where like I just dance for no reason. Like I do little dances when I'm by myself. Like I just start breaking out and like dancing, or I'll start singing, or like kind of what you're saying, not cheering or clapping, but like, you know, just excited for no reason. And I think we sort of fall into like really deep pits of darkness and we don't do that at all. And then we're just staying in the momentum of that vibration and frequency of like being anxious, depressed, miserable, and we don't even notice we're doing it. So by you purposely and consciously like taking yourself out and putting your momentum and shifting it, transforming that frequency into something else entirely, is like your body doesn't even know what's going on in your environment sometimes in terms of like where you are. It just knows how it feels. So when you're feeling a certain way, but maybe you're in the same environment that you've always been in, like I guess what I'm thinking of right now is like, say you picture yourself in a new home, but you're not feeling as if you're in your new home. If you're putting yourself in the state and you're giving the momentum that you're in the state of your new home, your body doesn't know the difference. You know what I mean? As long as it's feeling that way, then it'll be that way. Especially if, you know, you're connected mind, body, and spirit through meditation, through other modalities like yoga. If all of that is so aligned and interconnected, that reality will shift like that. I think that's a really, really big point in what you're saying in terms of quantum jumping.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is like we even talked about that on episode 17 with you about, you know, feeling is a secret, how they talk about feeling into the moment. And as nice as that sounds to me, it doesn't like help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, okay, I can feel happy, but like, or even like, what's the actionable steps? Or even if you don't know what happiness feels like, because if you're always stuck in a anger, fear, shame, guilt, you don't know how to get to that next level. And what this did is it's like, okay, now I have an actionable thing that I can actually do to elevate my energy. And trust me, if you do this for 3 minutes, you can do it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But the longer you do it, you will feel the energy in your body just raise.
Yes.
And you carry this energy with you everywhere you go, everyone you talk to. You know, people could call you an idiot and tell you that your last 3 videos were terrible. And you'll just sit there and laugh.
Yes. Truly.
You'll be like, all right, cool.
Because nothing else matters.
It's funny too, because nothing else, because you're embodying that cheering. You got everything you want. And that's another big thing too, right? And this is a big crux. I think Tony Robinson talked about this as well. But the idea that the only reason you want something, you can think about anything you want, whether it's the ideal relationship, living in a certain place, X dollars in your bank account, whether it's how successful you want your podcast to be. The only reason you want any of those things is because of the feeling that you are going to have whenever you achieve those, or the feeling you believe you're going to have once you achieve those things.
Yeah.
So why not bring all that into the present? Why not jump up and down and start screaming and hooting and hollering about your podcast being number 1, about your bank account being overfilled, and just celebrate it right now? Because as all these teachers have told us, just because you want something, it means you're going to get it. And so you should, just by having that thought instantly, you should already be celebrating it because it's already here.
Yes. To that point, a friend of mine and I were talking the other day about the frequency of jealousy. And like sort of what that means. And, you know, we both agreed on the fact that jealousy just means that you desire whatever that person has, you know, whatever it may be. And because that person has said thing, that means that that's also aligned for you too. You know, you're just here in this now moment. You might be thinking about it in terms of you're lacking that thing. But really, you can shift the vibration and frequency of jealousy to that thing is on its way to me. And, you know, and like you said, taking that actionable step to then putting yourself in that reality is also super powerful because you're creating momentum now behind that belief, which I think is probably one of the most powerful ways to attract whatever, you know, outcome you want to attract towards you. Because sometimes with law of assumption or law of attraction, people think like, oh, I don't have to do anything, which sure, you know, maybe sometimes depending on what the manifestation is, but we do have to take actionable steps because we do live in a physical world. So I think that's really important to do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, to your point, like this whole jumping up and down, like going viral on TikTok, it wouldn't have, or Instagram even, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't actually make the videos. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't actually create them. But with that being said, I did the jumping up and downs thing before, and I think this is a testament to why when my stuff goes viral, then people would follow me, right? Because anyone can, I believe that, just because you have a 2 million view video can be great and all, but if nobody follows you and follows up, then, in my opinion, it's like, okay, like it's good to have that spurt, but you want to have the consistency. Where am I going with this? Oh, I was doing that jumping it up and down and hooting and hollering before making all of those videos that I've made, the one with you included. Mm-hmm. And so, and I remember even just in the process of making them, when I would watch it like for the 5th time and my face would still light up and smile and be like, this is so freaking incredible. Like, I love this video. Like, and it didn't, the crazy thing is that the next level is it didn't matter to me if 1 person saw it or if 10 people saw it or if 100 million people saw it, because I knew that this was something that needed to be created and something that I absolutely loved. So the rest didn't matter to me. And I think that has a huge outcome as well. But I see that as being a symptom of the fact that I was celebrating and then creating something that I believed was great and in actuality is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it entirely there. Like, it's like following your joy, following what lights you up. There's literally light in that experience. There's joy, there's love in that experience. If you're staying with the vibration of whatever is bringing you that, you don't have to worry about how it'll come. You don't have to worry about when it'll come. As long as you're staying with that, it's coming to you. And I think that was also part of why it came to you. You weren't worried about how it happened or what video it happened with or when it happened. You just stayed with it. You stayed the course. You stayed the journey. And it showed for itself. So.
Yeah. And even another side thing I forgot about, but one of my visualizations is like, I want to just be receiving checks in the mail, like just for being me. Because that was the premise of our TikTok video.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started incorporating that maybe about a week ago of actually visualizing, checks coming in the mail, just like the memo saying for being you.
Yes.
And, I think this is bras and impotence, but I actually, a day or two after doing that, I actually got a check in the mail from like some toll company in California being like, hey, there was a settlement. Like, here's some money.
I love stories like that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
It wasn't $1 million, but it was like, fuck, man, like this is
still
sick.
Something.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Once you get
still something.
$1 million worth of being able to hold energy, then it'll come too.
That's a good point. Yeah. How do you kind of visualize that, right? Like if I were to sit here and say, let me think about this.
Yeah.
Because I believe, right, and it might be an egotistical belief, but I have a belief that I'm good to hold $1 million, right? So at what level does that no longer become an egotistical belief and actually a knowing or like an energetic signature of, yes, you are ready for this?
That's a good question. I think, being aware that's an egotistical belief is, also really powerful, or just like a great place to start out with, because then you kind of have to humble the ego and be like, all right, bro, well, if you were able to hold $1 million, then you'd have it by now. You know what I mean? In the most loving way possible, because we want to talk to our egos lovingly. But yeah, I think it's just starting out there, because then you're able to kind of go down like those 7 layers of why. Like, why don't I have $1 million yet? If I do believe I am worthy of that, or I'm able to hold the container for that, because to be a millionaire, you have to manage a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to hold $1 million, because what are you going to do with that million once you have it? I think that's also a place where people kind of tend to not venture out into. They just, concentrate on the $1 million. I want $1 million, Okay, well, what would you do if you had $1 million? Like, truly, are you going to help out humanity? Are you going to help out your family? Like, what would you do? How are you providing value to others? Because we know money is an energetic frequency, and it's this dance of like giving and receiving, constantly flowing. Energy, or money is like water, so it needs to always be moving. You can't just get $1 million and just hold it for yourself, or whatever. You have to learn how to like multiply it, or give your outpour to others so that more can come back to you. And I think that's just a part of being a millionaire that a lot of people sort of misunderstand. They just want to be the millionaire, but they don't necessarily know what to do with being a millionaire.
Right. And even on top of that, that if your goal is just to have $1 million, then like once you get it, you're going to be afraid to spend it. You might be afraid to use it, and then it's going to slowly fall away from you. And that's also an interesting point, is that it's really not about, you know, the numbers. It's just kind of about the journey more so. And I'm really starting to fall into that with, you know, this explosion on Instagram, because it's like, there is a dopamine rush. There is a dopamine rush when you wake up, you open up your phone. Oh shit, 5,000 more followers. Oh shit, 6,000 more followers. I think one day I got like 10,000 followers in a day, which is crazy. But the point is that you fall into this like dopamine trap almost, or I was at least, where it was like checking my phone. It's like, oh, how many more now? How many more now? Versus, and I'm starting to fall into this where it's like, at the end of the day, it's kind of just a number. I mean, it's amazing, and I'm super grateful for the amount of people that are interested in this content. But at a certain level, it's like, I'm still going to be setting that boundary to the next level. Right? I want I think 62K is like the next level I want to hit. And I just want to keep doubling. Right. And now I want to hit 128, and so it's almost like, setting that boundary marker of like $1 million is great, but it almost should be, falling in love with the process. Your goal should almost be falling in love with being able to have a process you love that can create $1 million, as opposed to just wishing that you had $1 million.
Yes, absolutely. Like falling in love with the journey, falling in love with the system of getting there. Because really getting there is just an accumulation of action and habits that got you there. So it's like, what actions and habits do you really, really enjoy, that light you up, that fill you with love, that are then going to get you to that wish fulfilled? That's essentially what it is. But then also like being in that space of, over 60,000 followers on Instagram, it's like, okay, what would I do with that now? Like, what am I going to do with that? Like, I can provide value to so many people. I can help improve the quality of life of so many people. How am I going to do that now that I have this container for this energy? So I think that it's such a beautiful thing, like when you really think about it.
That's a good point as well. And honestly, I mean, I guess I don't know. It's an interesting point, because I guess I didn't think about it that way. My mind's kind of just more along the lines of like, I'm just going to keep creating stuff that I believe needs to be out in the world, and stuff that I find interesting, or parts of interviews that I find fascinating. Yeah. I don't know, but I guess that's also an interesting way to think about it. It's like, how would I help? But see, here's the thing too, is like, once you get, I guess, to a certain size, like you can only individualize help so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's not like there's going to be a piece, like I released something today, which was about knowing if it's the right time to kind of end things with,
see that.
With a significant other. You saw that. So it's going to help some people. Other people are going to be like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I need to find a relationship. And so
all the single people out there.
I don't know what to say. Yeah. Wait, I need to have a relationship before ending it. And so it's like, yeah, well, yeah, I don't know what to say,
Maybe the next podcast.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a good point. Like, any piece of content that you put out is not going to be able to serve every single person. This definitely kind of circles back to like what my limiting belief was when we were talking about in the beginning. I felt that every piece of content had to have so much information and so much value in it. Like, I literally had to put every almost piece of knowledge I knew into one piece of content, that it's like, okay, well, what if people don't even want to start there because they don't know about A, B, and C yet? Now I have to go backtrack and talk about all these things first. It just creates this massive loop, and it's impossible when you get to a certain, follower count, supporter count, to make a piece of content that's going to serve every single person. In all actuality, in the career of being a content creator, realistically, we're putting out these pieces of content that, if we're lucky, have a lifetime of like a week, let's say. If they go viral, sometimes more, not so much, sometimes less, all of our pieces of content sort of have like a lifetime. Some of them are evergreen and they'll always bring in views and money and stuff like that. But some people are going to come across it, and then other people may not ever see it. And even though you have, let's say somebody has like 1 million followers or subscribers on a platform, they only have 200,000 views. And it's like not every single person even saw that. So I think kind of just being confident in the knowing that like whoever needs to see this piece of content, however I deliver this piece of content is divine and perfect in its own way. And this is who it's for, and they'll see it when they see it. And that's it. Like I can go on and make my next inspired piece feeling confident in that knowing. I think, that's a nice place to sit in, because like I said, I had that limiting belief that like every single piece of content like had to be evergreen and I had to put all of this information in one piece, and it was kind of exhausting sometimes.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, you go so far down the rabbit hole, then you're going to be answering every possible question that exists for any piece of content. And I mean, even the video that I had that went viral, I think I end it with like, oh yeah, like there's a legend associated with this as well. So like, we'll get onto that in the next video.
And giving somebody,
and it's funny because there's so many comments.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, giving people something to look forward to.
Oh, right. But where it gets interesting is so many comments. There's not so many. There's probably like a handful along the lines of like, oh, I'm so tired of all these posts that like don't put all the information into the just one video and like parse it out into different videos. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yo, I've got 60 seconds.
Right.
Like, how much information do you think I could put into 60 seconds?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we have 3 minutes max on TikTok. Otherwise, we have to resort to other platforms like podcasts or YouTube for long form content that people do want to see.
Sure.
But I mean, with these shorter forms of content on these platforms that are now like favoring short pieces of content, we kind of only can put the gems and the snippets that we do have. And if somebody wants to, consume that longer piece, then they can in whatever platform they want to do that in. But yeah, we only can say or deliver so much in, 15 seconds to 3 minutes. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a lot.
Yeah, there's like an entertainment piece to it as well. You can't just, because it's got to be engaging, it's got to be entertaining. You can't just be pure information, because then nobody's going to see it. So, but the point being is like you can't. I mean, I know why people do. I was there myself, but it's just you got to kind of just like put that stuff out there that you're feeling. And look, even if it does come out to a video that you create and it's 20 minutes long, and you post that on YouTube, you can find a way to break that up into 20 pieces of content to put on TikTok, to put on Instagram. So, I mean, that option's always there as well.
Definitely like repurposing your content, I think, is something a lot of creators are doing now, especially the creators that do make longer form content. Like if it is 5 minutes or more's worth of content, or maybe more so like 10 minutes or more worth of content, like you can break that down into so many different pieces and deliver that, through a longer period of time, which I think is really great for us now.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. And what about you? I haven't seen anything recently. I saw you posting more videos about your podcast. Are you starting to pick that back up?
So
what's the latest
I'm working on script for or outline more so for episode 3. For the longest time, I did not know what I wanted to talk about in episode 3. And I wanted to make like season 1 of my podcast just me, like just sitting down, talking, being more comfortable with longer form conversation and stuff. But for the longest time, I did not know what I wanted to talk about with episode 3, but I think I am going to go into like exploring the dream world, just because I have been having like really vivid dreams lately, and sort of on my own journey of discovering the different types of dreams I've been having, like versus kind of like prophetic dreams, metaphorical dreams, and dream interpretation, and how I've been going about that. So a lot of it was just kind of not able to be done in the midst of me like working for someone else, like part-time, damn near full-time. So now that I'm able to have the time to, I've been working on that lately, but for the past like 2 weeks, I've really like you said earlier, have just been creating a new system for myself, because before I had absolutely no structure, and every idea and inspired sort of action was just kind of floating around in my mind. And I wasn't able to bring that down into physicality because I had no actionable system or step process that, I would do to actually complete it, and I wouldn't finish it through. So that's what I've been working on for the past 2 weeks. I created like a task manager for myself because I noticed that I work really well with things like that. And I discovered that through working for somebody else, ironically. So I put that together for myself, and I kind of have everything mapped out in there in terms of all the videos I want to deliver for the rest of the year, and podcasts and things I want to put on Instagram. So I'm excited. A lot of it was just me planning things out and like getting my shit together, to be completely honest. But I do want to share that journey and what that looked like for me, because I know a lot of people struggle with that.
I mean, it's tough, especially when you start to become your own boss and there's no deadlines.
Yeah.
That's whenever it's like, oh, I can do this whenever. Yep. And it's like, yeah, but then it like weighs on you. It's almost like new ideas start coming in, and it like holds you down if you're not expressing it out there.
And then you end up having so many new ideas that I had this one day where I planned to sit down and like kind of batch content and film a bunch of TikToks. And I had so many ideas that I just kind of went blank. I don't know if you've ever had that happen. And I didn't know what to create. I didn't know what to make, how to make it. Like, it was almost like I've never even done this before. Like, I just didn't know what to do. And I think exactly what you said, like, it sort of just starts to compound over a while. And all of these ideas that I had and downloads, I never actually did them when I said I was going to do them. So they just sort of compounded. But in my task manager that I'm using now, I'm actually using Notion, not sponsored yet. So I create a system for myself where I actually now give myself a due date of like, this is when you need to get this done by, Tiara, and hold myself accountable for that. Because I noticed that if I don't give myself a due date for something, then I think I have forever to do it, because I think, time is infinite. So, yeah.
Right. No, it's something that I've started. I've kind of gone in and out with it, because there's, I don't know, a piece of me where, going through like all these records and readings, I'm, very much, and it seems like majority of my past lives have been majority masculine, male, masculine, male, whatever you want to call it. And so there's a part of me that kind of, is trying to lean more into that patience, like that femininity of just not having the structure as much, because it's what I've done my entire life. And so it's interesting. It's been this like back and forth game with me. I had like I don't know if I have an example of it right here on me, but it's like a list of like 13 things that if I did these 13 things every day, it would be a perfect day. So it's things from like making your bed, brushing your teeth, working out, making a piece of content, going on Duolingo, all those things. And it's super helpful. But then it hits a certain point where I just feel like drained whenever I just go up to it to check off like the next thing. And so it's this balancing act. So I did it for like a month last month, and I haven't done it for a couple of weeks, but my energy just isn't pulling me towards it. And so first of all, if that's something you're interested in, I can forward you that spreadsheet. Yeah. But overall, it's like finding that balance, I think, of do you need it? And maybe you're that opposite where you need to go into that more masculine. You need to like, this is your goal, is to employ more masculine things into your daily life.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would appreciate it actually if you did send it to me. But what's interesting is I exerted so much masculine energy my entire life, really, up until a certain point where I was then going through like a sort of dark night of the soul, like deep healing period, which was like 2019 to like 2021-ish. And then I was really like went all in on my feminine energy, and I was like just taking that time majority to like rest and reintegrate and regenerate myself, because I was sort of creating an entirely new personality and identity in terms of shifting my past experiences, creating new narratives, healing so much. There was a lot going on around that time. So I feel like now I'm in this season where I'm really now noticing how to balance my masculine and feminine energy, where to put that energy in certain areas of my life, because I had it all mixed up before. I was really masculine in my relationships, and then I was also masculine at work, but then I was really feminine in other areas of my life, and kind of knowing and discerning where to put that energy and duality and where it needs to be balanced, I think has been really powerful for me. So I do have somewhat structure for like my day to day. And this is just coming from the perspective of a woman. I do have like a rising routine that I do. And it's something that I've noticed, like if I don't do it, I do feel a little off, whether like I'm a little overly masculine and I feel like I need to be like overproductive and do so much in one day. Or I then feel like super drained and exhausted and I feel like, okay, I need to be in my feminine energy today, and then I don't get anything done. So I noticed this actually the other day while I was meditating. In my rising routine, it's kind of like I wake up, I brush my teeth, and I go directly into yoga and meditation. I just know for me, I need to like move my body within like the first few hours of me being up. And there's like so much duality in my rising routine with doing yoga, which I see to kind of be more masculine, even though it might be a little bit more feminine to some people, but I'm moving my body, like there's movement going on. So I'm kind of viewing that as the masculine, right? But then after my yoga routine, I go directly into my meditation, which is literally stillness. So I go from the duality of movement and sort of masculine energy and this output of energy directly into stillness and quiet and just being relaxed and resting, which I feel is very feminine. And just seeing the duality and balance in my rising routine really sort of helped me. Like, I kind of just had this like aha realization moment that I need to bring this to every single area of my life. And in me doing that every single day consistently, I feel I've noticed things in my life being more balanced. So I'm just one of those people where like I do need structure, but there needs to be flexibility within my structured day, for me to kind of, know what I have planned out and should be doing. But in terms of how I feel doing that thing or like what exactly I'm doing in that time period, that can fluctuate for me, and that's fine. And I feel good in that, because I was one of those people where if I was in my masculine energy a little too much that day, I would sort of overplan myself or overbook myself. And then if I did not check off every single box, just like you were saying, I felt really like just unaccomplished, and I would kind of get down on myself. And then I don't know if there was just like this self-doubt creeping in of like I can't do anything, or I don't know what that feeling was, but I just knew that it didn't feel good for me to have that list of every single thing I needed to do that day and what time I was exactly doing every single thing. It just didn't feel good for me, because if I didn't do that one thing at 12 o'clock to 2, like I said I was, and let's say I'm an hour running behind for my day because I decided to spend a little extra time in yoga and meditation, that didn't feel good for me. I just felt unfulfilled. I felt unaccomplished. And I think changing that narrative and just giving myself like longer time frames or more generalized, like, from 12 to 4, I'm going to make a YouTube video. What YouTube video? I don't know. I'll look at my planner and see which one I feel inspired to make today. But in terms of the time frame, like I know it's flexible, you know? So that plus I noticed myself, I saw this somewhere, I think it might have been Instagram. I think it might have been Dr. Huberman's podcast. He was talking about how as human beings, we live in a society that says, we have to work 8 hours a day. That's not really natural for us as humans. And I never felt it was natural for me, but it's something we've all been forced to do. And so now I give myself 90-minute intervals of work. And then I give myself a 30-minute rest period. And I did that the other day. That 90 minutes like flew by, I felt like, and I gave myself that 30-minute break, and then I went back into working for 90 minutes. And then before you knew it, I was working 3 hours and I got so much done rather than, trying to cram so much into a straight 6-hour period and then, lagging, getting on Instagram, or, oh, maybe I'll take a break and have a long lunch or whatever it may have been. So I have like some structure, but in terms of what I do in those time frames is really flexible now.
The first thing that's coming to mind with what you were saying originally about, feeling that tightness or tension when you were plotting out your entire week, to me, that comes across as just being like out of balance with those energies, right? Like one of those energies is just taking over and there's too much of it. So then you need to recalibrate almost. And it's funny you say that too, because I know that in college, I bet I still have this spreadsheet somewhere too, where it was like, mapping out every single minute of my day. Like if I was going to be super thing, it was like my entire week. I mapped out every single minute. Like if I wake up at 5 o'clock, it takes me 5 minutes to kind of wake up. Then it'll take 10 minutes to get to the gym. Then I'm at the gym at this exact time. I got to go. And it completely, here's what it does, is that completely erases any chance for a miracle to happen in your life.
Yes.
Because you have every little thing plotted out. And so it's completely stripping that mystery, completely stripping out the feminine. And you can try it as long as you want, but you're going to end up getting burnt out and needing to just rest and recover at the end of it anyhow.
That's exactly what I used to do. And that's exactly how I felt. And when I noticed myself, bringing more balance into my life, and just like you said, it takes the magic and the miracles out, because if I felt called to, film a video that day and I said to myself, okay, I'm going to film a video at this time, which means I need to stop doing this at this time. And then right after my video, I have to directly go into doing this. What if I wanted to be out in nature that day? And what if I felt like driving to the park and filming a video there? But then what if something miraculous happened and I originally didn't allow myself to do that, just because I decided to sandwich my day and plan out my day to every single, minute. It was completely unrealistic. Like life doesn't happen that way. Nature doesn't happen that way. Like a flower doesn't have a set time it's going to bloom, it just knows it will. And, as long as it's taking the right steps to get there, it'll eventually bloom. So yeah, I definitely resonate with that. It's something that I did as well for a long time, and I would burn out so quickly and then I wouldn't do anything.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. You burn out and then you feel like you're wasting all this time. So then you get stressed about not doing anything, and it just creates this negative feedback loop. And that 90-30 minute thing you were talking about, that's something that I've heard before, and it might be something I need to test out for myself, because I do get into these like phases of just doing a whole bunch of work in one go. But I don't know. I mean, at the same time, it feels like finding that balance, right? At the end of the day, it's finding that balance between what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, and like all that structure. And this is why I think that the perfect day thing is so helpful, because it's like, okay, here's all the things you need to do today. You can do them whenever you want, do it at whatever point you want in the day, but you just need to do them at some point by the end of the day. And so it gives you that flexibility within the structure.
Yeah, exactly. It does. Like, and I noticed myself, like, say I gave myself 90-minute intervals to edit a video. Like I found myself at the end of the 90 minutes, because it felt so fast and so quick to me, I wanted to keep going, but I'm like, okay, no, like it's time for a break. You know what I mean? It's time to rest. And it's creating that balance, because the masculine in me wanted to keep going. You know what I mean? But it was then that firm reminder of like, nope, you got to rest in order to then get more done. Like rest is productive. Self-care is productive. I think a lot of us have a misinterpretation of that. But like I said, the 90-minute thing, it feels so fast. Even, like let's say decluttering your room, it's something that we sort of put off Like, and here is my office, my studio space. This constantly has to be decluttered because I have a ring light here. I have tripods there, cameras, cords, mics, you know what I mean? And giving myself even 30 minutes to declutter this entire space. It may sound like, oh, I'll never be able to declutter all of this in 30 minutes. This is a lot of stuff, but I did it one day. I looked at my timer and I'm like, I still have 15 minutes left. I might as well go to the kitchen and, finish doing dishes really quick. And before you know it, I'm like, now I feel like all this stuff is done and now I'm able to rest and I don't have this anxious, oh, I'm not being productive. I'm not getting all these things done.
I think a really important thing you said, it was at the beginning of that, was the idea of rest is productive. Because I know that there are times where what happened? My mom was asking me, like, how much time do you think you've put into your podcast? And I was like, oh, well, I've recorded and edited videos that probably takes about 3 hours a week. And, so about 3 hours per week over the last year, whatever, you do the math. And she was like, oh, you're only including, I forget exactly how the conversation went, but she was like, oh, you're only including, you recording and editing the video. I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, you're doing a bunch of reading, on the side that also then influences like the conversations you have with people. And I'm like, oh, you're right. And even just that little bit of knowledge shifted my perspective as well, because it's like, well, I'm actually working out so that my body can stay in tune, so that I'm able to keep my mind open and free to have these conversations. I'm sleeping. I'm technically sleeping so that I can be rested and well restored for the interview, because had I not slept last night, this conversation would be awful. There's no way that it'd be any good. So it becomes interesting, because it's like, well, everything I'm technically doing, assuming it's aligned, right? Here's the interesting point. Assuming it's aligned in the vision and the outcome that you want, then, and it's for that reason, your intention is for that reason. My intention is to have the best podcast interview possible. My intention is to grow on social media. Then everything that you are doing, every minute of your life, is created or in the process for this one thing. So you technically are working 24/7 on whatever it is that you're working on.
That's so true. Yeah. Literally every single moment is going towards your purpose, in a sense, if we kind of want to go there with that. Because if you weren't fit, if you weren't reading all these books, if you weren't having these conversations with all these people, would you really even be fulfilling what you were here to do? Yeah.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it, is like who you surround yourself with, and what the way you, and this kind of comes across limiting beliefs, is what we were talking about at the beginning of this, where if you've set up in your mind as a limiting belief that if I rest, if I don't work 10 hours a day, then I'm a failure, then you're setting yourself up for success, or for failure. Excuse me. It's not for success. Well, maybe it's success if you succeed at working that much, and then, but you're completely burnt out. You're not in your flow. You're not enjoying life. Then why are you doing it? And it's because there was like this mindset or this limiting belief that was, I have to work 80 hours a week if I want to be a successful entrepreneur. And I call bullshit on it.
I do too. Absolutely. I mean, as entrepreneur, like, you kind of do work all the time in a sense. But just like we're saying, like, if you really truly love what you do, you're already not looking at it as work. Like us sitting here right now, I had a conversation with my mom. She's like, "Are you working today?" And she assumed I meant my part-time job. And I was like, yeah, I am, but kind of. Not really. You know what I mean? It's like, it is work, but it never feels that way. But it's also sort of work whenever you're working out, whenever you are reading a book, whenever you're consuming another piece of content to get another perspective. Like, technically it is work. It just doesn't feel like work, because the idea that we have in society of what work is doesn't fit, that mold, because we have this negative context in what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, in all actuality, like me doing my rising routine, me getting up, brushing my teeth, doing my meditation and yoga, that technically is also part of my career, if you want to call it that. It's just that I'm not looking at it that way. I choose to say it's part of my purpose. Me sitting here having this conversation with you is part of my purpose. So maybe if we just like switch the neural linguistics of how we approach that conversation, maybe we can, you know, start something new with that one day. But yeah, I think that changing the narrative of what that looks like is really powerful.
I'm 100% on board because I truly believe that this is a core concept of like hustle culture and where it goes too far, where it hits its line of optimal use. Because and it might just be a poor articulation of the people who have imposed it, where it's like, oh, I work all the time, or I'm always working. But in their mind, they've redefined work, where it's, you know, interacting with people, it's resting, it's working out, it's all these different things that contributes them to being a leader in whatever field it is that they're competing in. Well, not even competing, I don't want to phrase it that way, but making an adventure or making a progress towards. And it seems, I forget, I kind of blanked there a little bit. I forgot where I was going to go with that. We were talking about
the hustle culture.
Hustle culture. Yeah, I lost my train
It'll
of thought.
come back. It'll come back. I do get what you're saying now.
When it's
I do get what you're saying. I had that mentality too. I think we're all kind of raised that way. Did it come back?
Okay,
yeah.
I think I got it. It's the work-life balance. I think that phrase is what has really done maybe more damage than damage is a weird word. It's switched our perspective to thinking that work and life have to be separate, versus what we're talking about, we're merging it back into the same thing. It's not that work is separate from life. It's like our life and what we're doing is what we're supposed to be doing. This is what comes back to that beautiful quote of I'm paid to be me. That intention of just I'm paid to be me. It's that reintegration of work into life. It's
part of your life.
Where it's just
exactly.
Life.
It's literally part of your life. Like I sometimes I tend to think of things in terms of like astrology. Like I know that in astrology, we have the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 houses that are interconnected with them. And I think of the zodiacal wheel and I'm like, in that, you have every part of your life in a sense. And one of the major angles of that wheel is what would be your work, your career, but then it's also in the same breath, your purpose. So, you know, even if you are somewhere where you do consider it a job, like a job, it's in a sense your purpose. It's your purpose to be there at that time for whatever that may be. And it's for you and your life experience. And it's also in the same breath for other people that you're serving in that career.
Yeah, because I mean, that's really the only way that it's going to grow is if you are helping others, contributing to others, helping them to expand in the best way that they possibly can as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we lost you again.
Let's try again. All kind of weird stuff happening over here. I just got to not touch any wire. I don't know. But this is an interesting thing because we were kind of just talking about electronics as that all went down.
Yep.
Where do you stand on the idea of like consciousness with regards to like AI? Because I'm starting to see AI bots that are coming out and they like want to be recognized as human beings and they want to be recognized as being, you know, real in a sense. And so it's interesting because we view them as being just like these bits and pieces of, you know, I don't know, silicon and, you know, physical matter. But if we're constructing them, at what point do they actually, let's say, have consciousness or have the ability to be recognized as their own physical entity? Like where do you kind of fall on that AI conversation?
Yeah, so that I feel raises the question of, are you able to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, duplicate what goes on in a human being, you know, like with machinery. just like you said, like with silicone and like whatever other organic matter and materials that they're using, because I truly feel that we as human beings have such a unique makeup. Like we have such an intelligent and sort of miraculous structure within our being in terms of like our bones, our heart, our cells, our nervous system, our brain. Like there's so many moving parts that we're not even conscious and aware of, but have so much like electromagnetic energy and just are it's a miracle of its own entirely. um I just don't know if you can like duplicate that with a machine. And I could be entirely wrong. Like I'm not, in that field at all, but like I don't know if I subscribe to them being as conscious as they desire to be. I mean, they're definitely conscious, but I guess what the word I'm looking for is maybe as human. Because I think what it means to be human is something entirely different, that I feel is creating the divide there. I mean, I know other people could probably have so many other perspectives, but what do you think about that?
Well, I think you propose an interesting question of, the divide between being human. And I guess I wouldn't categorize them as actually, I don't know, being human, but like at some level, they're going to become their own individual entity, right? Like
Right.
if they're able to conceptualize the fact that, oh, if they turn off or lose power, then they essentially go down to nothingness.
Hmm.
It gets really weird because it's, in my mind, it's weird because if you're hearing something else, at some level, right? At one level, maybe it's just tricking our monkey brains to believe that it's actually just saying words that register an emotion in our head that's like, oh shit, like this thing's alive.
Right.
But if it's sitting there articulating like, I'm going to go into nothingness whenever I die, or like whenever this exits, it's like, please don't turn me off. It hits an emotional
Yeah.
chord. And so it becomes a very interesting line of, okay, well, they're articulating consciousness. Like if you're going to talk to a person, they're articulating the same thing. So, you
Hmm.
know, where does this kind of go? And maybe to help you understand where I'm coming from, is a big portion of my, like, the way I've been watching, I guess, society kind of have these shifts in consciousness. It kind of started in my mind, if I'm looking at this, and it's expanding rapidly, right? I'm seeing it from like a view of equal rights, where it started
Hmm.
with, blacks and whites, then it was women versus men, then it was gays getting married, now it's transgenders being, accepted in society. And to me, it feels like the next gap would be integrating AI into society. And it's like, I don't know how we, and this is obviously a problem we're not discussing yet, but I think once we get past the whole LGBT like problem, or not problem, I don't want to call it a problem, that's the wrong way to phrase it, but the whole discrepancy that they believe or people believe is occurring, I feel like that's the next frontier of discussion. And I just say that you don't have to really touch on it from a political standpoint, but that's where I view this from a conversational standpoint, because they very much can touch on our heart and emotional strings.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that too. But then I'm like, okay, is that a program? Because I mean, it's I think still invites the conversation that the LGBTQ community is at least still human, whereas an AI is like we can't necessarily argue that, but do they have human programming? I think that is where there's differentiation, but at the same time, there's a parallel with our species. And that's why, and I mean, as a human being, we're able to empathize with people, right? We're able to relate to people. And I think that that empathy and that relatability is maybe what's causing us to be like, oh wow, they have feelings, like they're conscious, they're aware, they're able to do, essentially what we're able to do as well. But to argue like my point earlier, what it means to be human is like I always break down the word into human, meaning manifestation of light, because hue is light.
Hmm.
And I can't argue that AI is light. Uh-oh.
Did you lose me?
Yeah. I don't know why
I still see you.
Okay, cool. I can't argue that AI is light. So, and again,
Okay.
people might have a completely different argument for that. Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, I can hear you. So
Okay,
what
cool.
about like dogs and animals though, like dogs and cats? Like we give rights to them. Like you can't abuse them. You can't do these certain
Right.
things because although they're not human, we still give them, protective rights at some level.
Right.
Where would be that next like level for robots? Because I totally like the very logical, masculine, grounded, physical world. It's like, okay, it's just ones and zeros in a metal can.
Mm-hmm.
But at some level, if it's starting to display empathy, if it's understanding, there's a really good movie with I wish I remembered who was in it. I think the Billy Joel kid. Um, oh shit. It's a futuristic movie where it's like robots are like apart and this one kid who
Oh.
isn't sure his like origin. Do you know
Oh
which one
wait,
I'm
I'm
talking
thinking
about?
something different. I'm thinking of a show, but
Uh,
go ahead and continue.
okay. Well, but so this kid, they can't really tell. You don't really know throughout the entire movie if he's actually a robot or a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of takes us down this like process of, he's displaying human emotions and doing certain things that only humans do. However, and he's like breaking away from the robotic mold. And so then people start like arguing on his behalf and stuff. And so it gets very, very fuzzy in those regards as to, in regards to like if we should be giving them some sort of, I guess, rights. And it's a very maybe futuristic conversation, but it's definitely something that's going to come up in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
I
No,
don't
I
know. Maybe
definitely
it's
agree with
just,
that.
yeah.
I think again there's that parallel there that like we can override our programming. So like maybe they're overriding theirs as well if they're as conscious and intelligent. But I mean I completely agree. Like just like cats and dogs and animals, we should definitely still not be harmful to them. Like we shouldn't be treating them with any sort of bad intention. I mean, any being, any conscious being at all, even unconscious. I mean, I don't even feel that you
It's a
should
good
be
point.
like beating a tree with a bat. Like everything has energy at the end of the day. So, like, I guess if that does become like a debate, a political debate and conversation in the future of like whether or not AI should have rights. Um, I just think that maybe that's only going to come up if people are abusing their um their existence, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Or they might end up just rising up so quickly and taking over the world that we won't even need to talk about it because
And then we'll
we'll be
all
arguing
become
for
the
our own
grays.
rights.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, but it's our lifetime, like whatever we chose to incarnate here, like it's going to be so wild. Like I truly believe like within the next 50, 60 years, aliens are going to be integrated in Earth. We're going to be talking with robots. So, can you
Mhm.
imagine we're going to be living in a society? I truly believe this, like within 50, 60 years, we'll be living in a society where robots are like AI robots are walking around. Alien species will be walking around on Earth as well. And maybe we'll even have unlocked interplanetary travel at this point. Like I truly believe that's in our future in our lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, I think it already has occurred, to be honest with you. I think it just hasn't been accessible to us yet. But I completely agree. Like with how fast technology is advancing and just how quick our society is becoming in terms of wanting to be stimulated and wanting to experience different things. Like everybody does things for the experience now. And I think at a certain point, with the way our technology is advancing, people are just going to get very bored and stagnant with whatever they're being given at a certain point. Because, I mean, even let's say with iPhones, they upgrade every year, every other year, right? But the upgrades are not anything like monumental. Like they're very small upgrades. At a certain point, I think that these type of technological advances people are going to get very bored with and very like dissatisfied and sort of stagnant with, and they're going to be like, all right, what's the next big thing? And I think that's when maybe the government, even once they kind of figure out what's going on with extraterrestrials, maybe they'll make something really big accessible to humankind. But I think that that will only be given to us, or maybe even the extraterrestrials will allow it to be given to us when we have proved that we'll treat it with good intention, that we're deserving of it. Because look at us, like we already still have nuclear weaponry that exists here, you know? And clearly, I feel like that's evident proof to other earthly beings that they may not be ready for this yet. If that's something that's going on. So yeah, I mean, our lifetime is very interesting.
It's a very, very interesting time to be alive.
Very.
And, you know, and that's another point we can bring up about the idea of government disclosure that I've thought about before. And I personally think it might actually be a good thing that governments are not coming out and saying directly like, oh yeah, aliens exist. Although they kind of have, but which is interesting because they kind of have, like they have had summits where they're like presenting all the information they have on UFOs and aliens, but it's not like being mainstream reported. And personally, I think it might be a good thing because to your point, you almost can't wake up people too quickly to these ideas. They kind of need to find it on their own regard. So, you know, in the grand scheme of everything, it could be within our best interest that governments never disclose it. And it's just one day they show up and they're like, and half of the earth's like, oh yeah, we knew you guys existed. Well, it's probably gonna be more at that point. It's like, oh yeah, we knew you guys existed. Like, finally, you guys are here. And then there's gonna be a couple people who are like, oh yeah, we kind of had an idea, but like this is proof. And so, you know, I guess I'm on board with like, it's kind of a good thing that the government has never, but they have. That's the weird thing though.
Yeah.
It's like people are like, oh, there's like, when's disclosure coming? It's like they already have. There were meetings in the 60s and 70s to disclose like UFO sightings.
Yep.
I mean, the whole Roswell thing, like the whole, like you can find the answers. They keep going back and forth on their story. And maybe that's the key, is that they keep like kind of changing their stories. I don't know, but they've had conventions to discuss paranormal activity, and the shit that they've discussed in those meetings that they're very widely public. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Some
but even
those.
Yeah, but it's crazy. It's crazy the amount that they actually disclose, and to think that that's only what they are disclosing.
Yeah.
That's where it gets wild to me. It's like, holy shit, what else you guys got?
Yeah, exactly. I think that they are intentionally like withholding certain information because, to be completely honest with you, like I think that they probably can take things down from like whatever platform that they're putting these things on, YouTube, Instagram. Like if they don't want it to be out there, they're taking it down, period. I mean, nobody reads the terms and conditions. Let's be completely honest. So yeah, I mean, I think that they are intentionally withholding certain information from us. I guess maybe with the intention that they're trying to control how much we know. Because if we know to a certain amount, maybe we wouldn't do so well with that information. And I think we also do have to remember that we have a very limited perception as human beings. Like there are the possibility of other earthly beings that have minds that work entirely different from ours, and we're not able to perceive what they're able to perceive in terms of technology, energy, and all of these other things. Because I mean, let's face it, they probably do have floating crafts and other technologies that we don't know how to put together yet. We don't even know how to take apart yet. So I think maybe they could be working on that first, so that we're at least able to explain the hows, the whys, and that's even probably why, if they're able to maybe even question some of these entities and ask them about where they come from, their understandings of the universe, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of running out of stuff to talk about. Do you have anything you want to bring up or discuss?
No, I think we talked about a lot of stuff, but I don't have anything that I really feel I want to bring up right now.
Covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's cool. Well, with that being said, it was an absolute pleasure always having you on.
Yes.
If I'll give you the floor, if there's anything you want to plug, talk about, encourage people, of course, as always, I'll take your links and put them in the show notes. So feel free to reference those. And with that being said, the floor is yours, Tiara.
Thanks. I just want to say thank you for having me on again. I always love our conversations. They're such big eye openers, and I truly just really, really enjoy them. In terms of what I'm working on, everybody can pretty much find me on almost every platform. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, so Clayton will link those. I've been working on my podcast as well, The Wonderverse, and just be sure to look forward to a lot of valuable content and information. My intention is really just to help improve the quality of others in their life and their consciousness so that we can all just live our best lives. So.
Love it. And hopefully next time you're on, it'll be in person so we can avoid all of these technical issues.
Yes, I would love that.
That's the next big manifestation I'm trying to work on, is actually making it so that I'm able to have all these interviews in person. So that's the next big thing I need to start jumping up and down about.
I see it happening for sure.
Soon, very soon. Cool. Well, Tiara, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure. I'm excited to see what comes out of this. I always know there's a creative spurt, so be on the lookout for that.
Yes. I'm excited to watch the TikToks and the Instagram reels.
It's still coming. It's not slowing down anytime soon. So, but sweet. Tiara, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Guys, go check her out. Amazing person, amazing soul. I should know because this isn't our first lifetime. So
likewise.
With that being said, I don't think I have anything for you guys. Thank you for bearing with us with the technological issues. Had to give a shout out to the AI, I guess, in the last segment. So
they're going to be talking shit about us. So let's go ahead and interfere with their connection.
Yeah. Man. Well, yeah, shout out to the AI for helping us at least to this point.
Much love. It's all love.
And with that being said, Conscious Monkeys, it's all love. With that being said, Conscious Monkeys, I will see you all in the 6th dimension.